ferry was essentially rolling over, soon to be completely inverted, rendering entry into the vessel effectively impossible by this point.
The first parents waiting, bracing to the sound of losing a child.
So many young people in the
by heartbreaking new
human bones recovered from
the capsized ferry have been shared.
I think we're going to die.
Ferry captain and crew who
Assalamualaikum and hi. Today we are going to talk about Sewol Ferry tragedy. Sewol Ferry tragedy is one of the most heart-wrenching maritime disaster in South Korea's history. It occurred on April 16, 2014, when the MV Sewol, a passenger ferry, capsized and sank off the southwestern coast of South Korea. The ferry was on a routine voyage from Incheon to Jeju Island, which is a popular tourist destination known for its scenic beauty and volcanic landscapes. Okay, if you want to know, the MV Sewol was a 6,825-ton vessel operated by Chonghejin Marine Company. On the day of the disaster, the ferry was carrying 476 people, including 325 students from Danwon High School in Ansan, a city near Seoul. So, the students accompanied by 14 teachers, and they were on a school trip to Jeju Island, which is a journey that they had eagerly anticipated because it is a school trip. So, the remaining passengers included regular travelers, crew members, and a total of 2,142.7 tons of cargo, including 185 cars. Okay, so the ill-fated ferry carrying hundreds of passengers was commanded by the experienced 69-year-old captain, which is Captain Lee Jun-suk, a weathered seafarer with over 4 decades of sailing experience under his belt. Captain Lee, who had navigated this perilous route numerous times before, was brought in as a temporary replacement for the regular captain on a lucrative 1-year contract worth 2.7 million won per month. So, for this fateful journey, Captain Lee assembled a crew of 33 individuals to assist him in safely guiding the vessels across the open waters. However, nearly 2/3 of the crew, numbering 19 in total, were irregular part-time workers who lacked the extensive training and experience of their full-time counterparts. Despite the challenges posed by the crew's composition, Captain Lee remained confident in his ability to steer the ship to its destination, drawing upon his wealth of knowledge and expertise accumulated over his long and distinguished career at sea. Okay, the sinking of the Sewol ferry in 2014, which claimed 304 lives, mostly high school students, sparked widespread outrage and protest in South Korea. The captain and most of the crew were widely criticized for abandoning the ship while passengers were still on board. Chonghejin Marine, the ferry's operator, and the regulators who oversaw its operations were also condemned for prioritizing profits over safety.
The incident begins when the ferry departed from Incheon on the evening of April 15, 2014, under the command of Captain Lee Jun-suk. The weather conditions were reported to be clear and the sea was calm. The journey was expected to take approximately 13 hours, with the ferry scheduled to arrive at Jeju Island the following morning. On the morning of April 16, 2014, as the Sewol approached the Mangle Channel, a notoriously tricky stretch of water known for its strong currents, the situation began to deteriorate rapidly. At around 8:30 a.m., the ferry made a sudden and sharp turn, causing it to lean heavily to one side. This abrupt maneuver was later attributed to a combination of factors, including the ferry's overloaded cargo, improper securing of the cargo, and the illegal modifications made to the vessel to increase its capacity. As the ferry began to tilt, the crew, including Captain Lee Jun-suk, instructed passengers to stay in their cabins and remain calm, assuring them that rescue operations were underway. However, the crew's actions were far from reassuring. Instead of coordinating an orderly evacuation, the captain and several crew members abandoned the ship early, leaving many passengers, particularly the students, trapped inside the rapidly sinking vessel.
At 8:52 a.m., a student on board the boat made the initial distress call, which was followed by many more passengers and personnel. Despite this urgent request for assistance, the initial rescue effort was delayed and poorly managed. The first rescue boats did not reach until about 13 minutes after the emergency call, and the ferry was already seriously listed. Crew makes a distress call to the Maritime Traffic Control Center, reporting that the ship has listed heavily and is in danger. As the minute passed, the sail proceeded to capsize, eventually coming to rest on its side and sinking completely. The chaotic and disorganized evacuation operations, along with the crew's desertion of the ship, resulted in a massive loss of life. Out of the 476 passengers on board, only 172 were saved. Over the next day, the tragic extent of the disaster becomes clear. 304 people lose their life, with most victims being students on a school trip, including 250 people from Daemun High School, has died in the disaster. The globe, including South Korea, was rocked by the sinking's announcement. When the magnitude of the tragedy became clear, the country fell into deep sadness. In addition to the apparent carelessness and misbehavior of the ferry's management and crew, the loss of so many young lives provoked public indignation and calls for responsibility.
South Korea was forever changed on April 16, 2014 when the Sewol ferry capsized en route to Jeju Island. This seemingly ordinary journey morphed into a national tragedy. The overloaded vessel, riddled with safety violations, succumbed to the unforgiving sea, claiming 304 lives, most of them are young high school students. The disaster exposed a horrifying truth, a culture that prioritized profit over safety. Delayed evacuation orders and a sluggish Coast Guard response left many to drown, further fueling public outrage. Investigations unveiled a web of corruption in the ferry industry and regulatory bodies. The captain and crew, symbols of this negligence, faced convictions for manslaughter. In the aftermath, the government scrambled to implement stricter safety regulations. Mandatory stability tests, weight limits, and improved crew training became the norm. The Coast Guard underwent a much-needed overhaul, aiming for faster and more coordinated response during emergencies. Public awareness campaigns now equip passengers with essential knowledge for navigating maritime emergencies. Despite these reforms, the Sewol's legacy remains a source of pain and anger. Families of the victims believe the changes haven't gone far enough. They continue to fight for a complete overhaul of the safety culture, demanding a system that prioritizes human lives over profit margins. The Sewol tragedy serves as a constant reminder the cost of unchecked greed and bureaucratic failures can be tragically high. The fight for a safer future at sea continues, fueled by the enduring memory of those lost on the Sewol.
The Sewol ferry tragedy, which claimed the lives of 304 people, mostly high school students, in 2014, was a devastating disaster that exposed numerous systemic failures in South Korea maritime safety regulations, government oversight, and emergency response procedures. The sinking was primarily caused by the ferry operators' illegal modification to increase cargo capacity, poor cargo securing practices, and the captain and crew's negligent actions during the emergency, while the government's poor handling of the disaster, including the Coast Guard's inadequate rescue efforts and the administration attempts to downplay its culpability, which led to widespread public outrage and mistrust, prompting significant social and political changes in the country as investigations reveal deep-rooted issues such as lack regulations, corruption, and a culture that prioritizes profit over safety. The Sewol disaster remains unresolved, with many unanswered questions and the bereaved families continuing to demand accountability and the truth, making it one of the most significant events in South Korea history. That's all from us. May all the victims rest in peace.